Hi, welcome to the fourth episode of this monthly series where I talk about the new intelligent human computer interfaces that we designed at the Augmented Human Lab that I direct. So, today, the interface that I'm going to talk about is ChewIt. What I'll do is I'll give you a bit of a background and answer some of the questions I received before this webinar, and then I will open the floor for questions. So one of the first questions I received was, what is ChewIt? In fact, the easiest way to think about this is it's like your computer mouse, but miniaturized into such a small size, as you can see with the coin at the bottom of the screen, and you can put it in the mouth. So it's almost like a chewing gum that you can put in the mouth, and you can move it with your tongue. You can bite on it and essentially achieve the same function that your mouse will achieve. You can control things with it. And in fact, some of the key features of Chewit is you can easily put it into your mouth and take it out, similar to a chewing gum, and you can hide it in your mouth. So if I have Chewit in my mouth, nobody will notice that. And you can bite on it and perform gestures, and that can be used as a control signal to control your mobile phone or your computer, very similar to what a mouse would do. So that's basically Chewit in a very nutshell. Then the obvious question is why this weird thing? What made us come up with this idea? So really, if you think about it, there are several situations that our hands, eyes are busy. Imagine riding a bicycle. Your hands are busy holding the handle, your eyes are busy looking at the road. How do you answer a phone call? How do you change your music? Or maybe you are carrying your shopping items, both hands. Somebody calls you, how do you answer that? Or maybe your hands are too dirty to touch anything. Or maybe there are situations where both your hands are performing certain functions and you wish you had a third hand to accomplish another task. Of course, voice is one option, but then you don't want to be talking loudly at all situations. So Chewit provides that hands free, eyes free. You don't need to use your hands, you don't need to look at it, you just put it in your mouth, you operate, and nobody will notice that you are using Chewit. So that's why we designed it. And how did we do that? It's not that straightforward. One of the the real key thing we needed to figure out is the shape and the size. Imagine you're putting this inside the mouth, right? So if it is a very symmetric thing, you have no idea about the orientation. So we studied several shapes uh, in terms of, can we recognize the orientation, how easy is it to maneuver within the mouth, and how comfortable it is. And of course, the asymmetric shapes are making sense, and then we, based on these studies, we found a particular shape. Then we studied different sizes. If it is too small, there's a risk of swallowing and loss of controllability. If it is too big, then it gets in the way. So there's some optimal sizes. So those are some of the studies we ran, the research we did in order to come up with this form factor. And then of course it has a accelerometer and a touch button that can detect the orientation and the gestures. So that's how we did the design process. Another question that came up was, does this actually work? It works in multiple sense. In terms of achieving the function, you can see in one person is using Chewit, the other one he's eating something. So look and feel is the same. And in this case, having Chewit or not having Chewit, it's hard to notice. So that discreteness has been achieved. Either when you are using it, people might think you are eating something. When you're not using it, nobody will notice. In terms of possible gestures, we looked at many things you can do. You can rotate it, you can flip it, you can move it around, you can bite on it. And we studied this in terms of how obstructive, how comfortable, does it influence your natural look, is it easy to use. And some are better gestures, for example biting, rolling, those seems to be better gestures. So depending on the application you can choose these gestures. And we actually implemented the proof of concept. Here you can see someone is riding a bike and controlling the music, and someone is operating a complex equipment, and even someone uh, controlling a slide deck. Let me play the video.
You will be able to shuffle through your playlist while riding. A club isn't. He said, let's get out of this town, drive out of the city. Also, it can help you during your office work or presenting your projects to an audience. ChewIt aims to unveil novel users' interactions, allowing more intuitive hands-free operations.
So is that it? What else am I planning to do with it? As you can see, it's a cool device. You can put it in your mouth, you can change your music, you can answer your call. Those are nice to have, but I guess the bigger vision is there are even more meaningful and impactful applications you can develop, and I wish those things will emerge. For example, I'm not sure how many of you have seen this movie. uh, in this movie, this guy, he's paralyzed and he runs he's using a wheelchair, and the way he controls the wheelchair is using this mechanical joystick, and he uses his face to move the stick, which is not ideal, but that's the best option you have because your hands and legs are paralyzed. In this situation, imagine an interface like ChewIt will allow the guy to look at the direction he wants to go and maybe bite on it, and the wheelchair goes that way. So there's potential to develop that kind of impactful and meaningful applications. And I hope as the time goes, those kind of ChewIt enable applications will come through. So that's bit of the questions that I have received, and a brief overview of ChewIt. If you have any further questions, clarifications about this interface, I'm happy to answer now, and you can use the chat to ask questions. Thanks, Troy, for that very positive comment. Looks like there's no uh, additional questions in the live chat. But if you do come up with any questions, you can email me through. Oh, there is a question. I wonder how long have you been prototyping this? Uh, a master student worked on this with me. So it was 1 year full-time research project by a master student together with me and another co-supervisor. So I would say 3 researchers spending a year doing multiple prototypes. Oh, thanks, Samira, for that supportive comment. Okay, so if you do have additional comments, questions, you can email me at suranga@ahlab.org, and I'll try my best to follow up and answer. And oh, looks like questions are coming in. What's the research on side effects? That's a very interesting question. There's a lot of things that needs to be think about in terms of safety aspects. We did some work on understanding the biocompatibility, but there's more to be done. There's also ethical questions around these are potentially semi-embedded into your body. So the cyber security issues, there's questions around that needs to be answered. There's a issues around hygiene, especially with the corona situation. How do you make sure that the hygiene factor is taken care of? There's a lot of those questions needs to be investigated. I guess what we did is we put forward this new concept. We built a proof of concept prototype. We show the value in terms of ChewIt as a new input device, and that's why we need like a whole research community who are into these other domains, which is not my main domain, to study the health, safety, ethical, cybersecurity issues. So eventually, once those are understood, they will become main. These kind of interfaces will become mainstream and potentially be available to people who might find this very meaningful. Thank you for that question. What other applications can be made using this technology? So essentially, Irendra, the way to think about this is imagine you have a new mouse or new Bluetooth controller. What can you do? So you can potentially link it to any device, any application, right? So as a technology developer or application developer, the way to think about Chewit is it's an additional input, and it gives you the control signals through Bluetooth. Then depending on the application, if you are doing a music app, you can use this input to change the control. If you want to develop an assistive tech for wheelchair, you could do so. If you wanted to build this as an accessory with a complex equipment such as oscilloscope or microscope, then you can add that functionality. So it's almost like a, as I said, extra input, and how you use it, it's really up to the application developer. But this provides that additional input apart from what you could do with your gestures, hand gestures, your voice, uh, and your facial expressions. Apart from that, this is another useful additional input. The situations that is this is becomes even more useful is where you don't have hands available, you don't have your visual attention available, and you need to operate in a very discrete way. Those kind of applications are the ones that are much more appropriate for this interface. Hakim, is there a plan to make this product commercial in the foreseeable future? Uh, I personally don't. What we did, therefore, is we did the research, we found things, and we put all the information out there as research papers and even on the website, which means the information is public, available to anyone. And by putting this out there and doing these type of webinars and answering people when they have questions, is to see if somebody were to take this forward and build an application. My master student had that intention a while ago. I'm not so sure what's the status of now, but I personally not planning to invest time because I'm working on a couple of other projects. But we have put the information out there in public. You can go to my research web page, www.ahlab.org/projects. You can find all the information, including the publications, and all the technical details and the findings are available. You've done with a variety of tools that can harness different physical abilities of people to help in us. Would you say this is the best project you have been part of, or are there other which you have shown greater success? It's it's a very interesting and thought-provoking question. It's almost like you have many kids and which kid you would love. It's hard to pick from that sense, but I think maybe a different way to think about this is the maturity of different projects. I would say ChewIt is a very novel concept. There's a very new knowledge contribution. We did a paper, but as a device, uh, we didn't take it as forward as some of the other projects, such as finger reader, which was given to blind users to use, such as Curious I showed last month, which has been going through a national deployment. We had people to take it beyond the research. I would say this is one of your uh, babies, and then you have your toddlers and your adults, to put it that way. Okay, so thank you so much for those questions. Very interesting. Thank you for the comments. Uh, Very encouraging. As I said earlier, if you have more questions, send them to me, suranga@ahlab.org. And next month, I'll come with another innovation uh, through the same forum. Thank you so much for tuning in. Look forward to see you all next month. Thank you.